Hi folks, we're Taskless today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about just a general issue of in the United States, but it could apply to other Western countries, of the mass deportation of illegal aliens. Now, in terms of illegal aliens, the United States, I think, has the bigger issue than all the other Western countries. The main source in Australia, for example, of illegal aliens is visa overstays and things like that. Not that there aren't others coming in, because Australia's got quite a lot of coastline, but the number of illegals and their estimates range from 100,000 plus. But again, primarily visa overstays and primarily Indians that are doing the visa overstay stuff. Now, there's also a lot of other sort of less obvious sort of problems in Australia where people are coming in supposedly as students, but they're really being funneled through sham labour hire organisations. They're not students at all, and so they're illegal, as in they've said they're here in Australia to study, but they're in fact not studying at all. So I would rate that as illegal in a fraudulent sense. But coming back to the United States, now depending on whose numbers you look at, the amount of illegals is 30 million plus, and some estimates going even into the mid 40s. The mid 40s in terms of illegals. So there's a lot of illegals to deport. Is it even logistically possible? And there are certainly some arguments around that. Now, in the first instance, the Trump administration is trying to deport illegals who are also have committed crimes, serious crimes. But the estimate of the amount of illegals who've committed, crimes that aren't serious in the direct sense of, did they murder somebody or that sort of thing? Did they commit armed robbery? But in things like they were caught for drink driving without a license, or an expired license, or those sorts of things. They've been involved in a motor vehicle collision. It was their fault, but they fled the scene. Things like that. Now, or sort of lower level theft, but sort of misdemeanor theft, that sort of thing. So should those people deport? Well, the general sort of estimate is that between 25 and 30% of all the illegals who haven't committed serious crimes have committed another crime. For example, driving without a license, driving while under the influence of alcohol, theft, and so on. So should they be deported? Now, then you come to another level of criminality where they're illegal. They've entered the country illegally, and then they've committed a second offence, such as working for cash paid under the table, which is tax fraud, and various employment laws are being transgressed there, and or they've got a fake social security number, or the labour hire firm the scam sham labour hire firm set them up with false documentation, and they knew it, and so they've been participating in various levels of identity fraud, social security fraud, taxation fraud, and so on. So there's a whole range of things there. So when you actually look at how many of the illegal aliens in the United States have not acted illegally in at least two, if not more ways, such as, again, entering the country illegally, one, and then engaging in identity fraud and taxation fraud and so on. So this means that there's really no illegal alien in the United States who hasn't committed some form of either a crime and a somewhat serious crime, less serious crimes, or if you like, administrative crimes, such as using fake ID and that sort of thing. And these are still crimes, whether you want to call it misrepresentation or whatever. Now, on top of that, there's a vast swathe of Indians in particular that have fake qualification type fraud coming in through various schemes such as H-1B and the like. So the amount of people who should be eligible to be deported, if you add all the categories together, would be somewhere in the range of 60 million people. They also would have children, or some would. So now the argument comes into, well, should all of these people be deported? Let's assume, you know, Jose has come in from, I don't know, Mexico or somewhere, and came in quietly, and there was, you know, his brother Juan was working illegally in a, I don't know, picking fruit or a meat packing plant or something like that, and said, look, they're looking for workers, cheap workers here. They'll pay you under the table. The labour hire firm will give you a fake ID and a fake social security number. Don't worry, no one will check. You'll be fine. So Jose comes in. Jose's not, you know, no genius. He's got an IQ of 85 or something, but he sees an opportunity. So okay. So he goes through all these illegal, you know, processes, gets into the US, gets his illegal job, gets his illegal paycheck, all that sort of thing. But he's lived quietly and prudently and honestly for 25 years. And yeah, he's had 4 children in the US. They've all grown up there, and somehow no one's checked on them, and no one's located, or if it has been discovered that he's there illegally, the authorities just look the other way and turn a blind eye. And maybe the guy who owns the meat packing plant is a big employer of people. Maybe he knows the local politicians well, or maybe he's buddies with the local, I don't know, police chief or mayor or something like that, and they just have a quiet word over a cocktail, and he's, look, can you just look the other way on this? Can you let the documents fall down the back of the filing cabinet or something, you know, that sort of thing. And it's no real harm. Damn, what's the harm done? I mean, seriously, what's the problem? So now there are supposedly, you know, quite a few people that are in that category where should they be allowed to stay is an argument that I see pushed around. Now, there's potentially merit in that, in a limited and very targeted and very high bar amnesty. Maybe there is a case for that. I'm not advocating for it. I'm against it because it simply encourages more third world, desperados to try and come into the United States or into the West generally. But I do accept there's people putting forward that argument. But it's not very many. Not very many would fall into that. Now, the type of fraud needs to be administrative only, and they can't directly be any party to it. And again, I would think it's somewhere in the range of 10 million there, which still means 40 million plus people need to be evicted. So what are the logistics on that? Now, if the federal government cuts off all subsidies, aids, handout, welfare programs, cuts it all off, a lot of the states, such as California and Illinois, will simply replace all those benefits with state benefits. So the pushing and shoving match over that isn't, I don't know, it's not good optics all around for anybody really, but it makes it much harder. So withdrawing all benefits to illegals, preventing, if they can be fully prevented from voting, for example, then they'll cease to have the same value for the Democrats and the globalists as they did have. Use of illegal aliens to vote is a big draw to that. Other sort of things could be put in place, like you have to speak good English. Like if you've been in the country 25 years, or even a few years, and you can't speak functional English, at least to say junior high school level, then you should go. You're not trying to integrate. You're not assimilating. I mean, go back to where you came from. Seriously, and you even find children of American born, but from South American immigrants. They speak English with a heavy Latino accent, and they're born in the United States, which means that they're hanging out in Hispanic neighborhoods and only Spanish is spoken in the house, which means their parents haven't integrated. So people like that. So there could be a high bar. If you want to transition, have a pathway to citizenship, that's okay. And we're prepared to discuss that with you. But you've got to speak good English. You've got to have shown that you've made every effort to assimilate and integrate. And people coming forward to do those tests or be examined in that way would then create a high bar for the quality of people. When I say quality, I mean in terms of they're integrating, they're assimilating, they speak good English. They've got every sign that they're going to be a good citizen, a good contributing citizen. Then I think there would be an argument. Now, how many out of the supposed 10 million, Juans and Jose's that have lived, quietly and modestly, so how many of those would have integrated? Well, again, not very many. So I think out of the 50 plus million or however many it is, I mean, we just don't know exactly. More than 30 million, but no one knows the number. If you applied a high bar pathway to citizenship test and you cut off all aid and all welfare, any kid in school, that their parents have to come and show citizenship ID and proper papers, that sort of thing. It could be done. It could be done, and then say, look, we'll give you a free bus ticket or a free plane ticket back to where you came from. That sort of thing. Then and have a high bar saying, well, look, we're prepared to discuss it. If you haven't committed any crimes, then we're prepared, other than administrative crime, we're prepared to give you a pathway to citizenship, but you got to show you made every effort to integrate and assimilate. And then we're happy to discuss it. We not guarantee it, but to discuss it with you. I think that's a conversation worth having. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.